Accent, 1975. They were worried about a topic that I don't think we've discussed ever on this programme and will never be discussed again, which is the European Union, or the EEC. The EEC, in the 8th of May 1975, the headline was EEC, Way for Ireland to Stand on Its Own Feet. The common market is proving one way for Ireland to learn to stand on its own feet. That is the view of full-time union official Tom Gary, an employee of Guinness's brewery. He argues that before joining the common market, Ireland was far too dependent on Britain economically. Joining Europe meant it would be able to diversify its trade and industry, would become less committed to the British market. See, that's always an argument. This is a long-going argument about connection with Europe.
Yeah.
Republicans traditionally, Sinn Féin traditionally, always anti.
Up until to be honest, not long before Brexit.
Yeah, anti-EU.
The Sinn Féin became totally pro-Europe, I think, after Brexit.
Yeah.
The truth be told, but before, for years and years, every referendum they were opposed to. Never considered pro-European party.
Right.
Up until the 2010s onwards, as such. Like definitely in the 1970s, they were openly. Totally anti-Europe, anti-Europe, and so was the SNP. Believe it or not, Scottish National Party were totally anti-Europe as well at the time, which is a complete fall face now that they've had.
Just because notions of sovereignty have changed over the decades, and that 1975 Sinn Féin are saying, "Oh, being part of the EU means we're not a fully independent nation."
Yeah, we're part of another imperial body.
Yeah.
We've replaced one imperial body for another.
Right.
That's the way it was. And some people still have that view. And look, it's a viewpoint. I don't share it, but people do feel that decisions that Dublin would have made 50 years ago are now being made in Brussels or in Paris or Berlin. But look, there is some you do wonder, like, some decisions made and where they're being made and what control the sovereign Irish nation with a small population compared to the whole 27 nation of Europe, a lot bigger countries. What say does Ireland have in that? But look at way since the 26 counties where it has come from, and say since 73, to where we are now, and surely most people would agree that one of the reasons why we've developed economically in particular is because of Europe.
100%.
Yeah, so like to me, it's been the best thing to happen to Ireland sovereignty, and it's.
We used to laugh at your crap roads. You used to laugh.
I remember the first time.
Border, going, oh my God.
You didn't know. You used to know that you crossed the border by the state of the road. So, but you're still doing some way. So, as in, when I crossed the border, you'd notice. I remember going from Cavan to Armagh, and the change in the road was unbelievable. Yeah. And that was the other way around.
Yeah.
It has changed completely almost, and it is in some respects to do with Europe.
Ireland and Britain joined the EEC, as it was then, the European Economic Community, together in 1973.
And Denmark as well.
Denmark and three of them in 1973.
Yeah, January 1st, 73.
Did I get that right? Yeah. And the referendum in Britain was 75, was it?
So there obviously is one in 70. Actually, no, I'm not sure. Did Britain have one in 72? But Ireland did anyway have had a referendum to agree to join the Euro. I presume Britain did as well in 72.
Britain did, yeah.
But then they had one, should we, like with Brexit, should we stay or go in 75. So that happened in June 75, that referendum. Obviously it passed. I don't think we're giving much away to say that it passed.
Yes, I think.
Decided to stay in Europe at the time. So it was a different government, like it was Harold Wilson. He was very pro-Europe.
The Conservatives were pro-Europe.
Yeah, Conservatives pro-Europe.
Margaret Thatcher famously wearing a dress with all the flags of Europe, or the 10 or 12 of them as they were.
So she'd only become leader of the opposition in.
She wasn't prime minister at the time.
No. In 79 she became prime minister,
but she was campaigning for the common market for the European.
She always she had her problems with Europe, but she was pro. I think even up until she resigned, she was pro staying in Europe.
Right.
I think, but obviously better deal for Britain as she saw it. So she just become opposition leader in February 75.
Yeah.
I think won decisively enough. It wasn't as controversial, obviously, as 2016. But there was, and in the north, obviously, there was this debate as well. Will we benefit from Europe or not, or does it lead to United Ireland? There's less, and the Irish government. A lot of people in Ireland thought that Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland being in Europe will break down barriers.
Yeah.
for customs posts. Now we will
Yes.
go back to customs posts, which is a real pet subject of mine. But like,
Oh, you love a wee barrier, don't you? And a family cap.
Yeah.
Go on, have you got any cheese on you?
So the Irish Free State erected customs barriers in 1923,
Yeah.
which basically created a hard border.
Yeah.
And it was meant to be a temporary measure because Ireland was trying to show its fiscal independence muscle as such, and it had to create the physical manifestation of a border, which was customs posts, checks and balances at the border. And it was only meant to be there for a while, but it actually lasted for 70 years until the both Ireland and UK joined the EU single market.
Wow.
In January 1st, 93.
Yeah.
But when the debate around Ireland joining the EEC, some people were saying actually this will break down the barriers,
Yeah.
get rid of customs posts, even though we've created them.
But the plan
get rid
was,
of them.
because the European Union would get rid of borders and we would
Exactly.
cross borders freely and all of that. But yeah, no, I obviously remember crossing the border and changing your money at Dundalk and all that sort of stuff.
And people from the south actually buying tellies and electrical equipment out Banuri from all over the country. And then legging it over the borders and not be caught by customs officials.
And again, you think this is 1975, and people are debating the economics of it, where there's a whole thing here about 25% of Ireland's total labour force was working in agriculture at the time.
Yeah.
How that has changed in 50 years is incredible.
Of course, yeah.
And
our dependence on Britain, and that was the big thing really, and Europe joining Europe just changed that completely. And
what was the government down south in 75?
Fine Gael Labour, Liam Cosgrave would have been
Right.
the Taoiseach. So yeah, it was the.
And was there much opposition to joining apart from...
No, very, very little. It was huge. Ireland has always been very pro EEC,
Right.
EU, so it was a massive majority passed. All the major parties at the time, so like it was called a 2.5 party system. It was Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael and Labour, the half party. All of those three parties would be very, very pro-Europe.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course, Sinn Féin didn't really exist down south as a...
Well, it didn't compete in elections.
That's right. Of course, that's right. On a point of principle.
or if it didn't take seats. So, it didn't take seats. I think Quavian Aquilon was the first Sinn Féin TD who took his seat in the Dáil, and that was in the 90s. So it was even though there had been Sinn Féin TDs elected, particularly in the 80s.
They had an abstentionist
following
policy.
the hunger strikes and all of that in the early 80s, but they abstained from the Dáil as well. The last Dáil Sinn Féin recognised was the second Dáil,
right?
which was ended in 1922. So,
I think you'll find there's 5 lads in a pub in Derry who are still the inheritors of that second.
There's more than that. There's a lot of dissident groups, and then there's distant groups of the distant groups.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they're the true inheritors of the second Dáil. I think you'll find.
Exactly.
You Free State Brit-lick spittle. But no, so 75 referendum happens down, and basically everybody's in favour of it. You get it when you.
Well,
when you look
obviously in Ireland, they're not involved in this. This Ireland, UK are in the EU or EEC, and the UK is deciding should we stay in it. So it's nothing to do with Ireland. Ireland is definitely staying in the EEC.
Right.
So this is a UK referendum.
Right.
So.
And also you think back and you think of John Hume. John Hume, passionate European, partly because you get an outside voice. You get an outside. You can appeal to Europe to take an interest in Ireland.
But he was like John Hume was a wonderful man, and he was a great European. But he also saw the benefits of not just, as you said, the other voices, other perspectives. Yeah. He did a lot of heavy lifting in getting American politicians interested into the peace process. Getting the 4 apocalypse men, the Tip O'Neill and Edward Kennedy and those guys, and then getting presidents interested as well. That was John Hume did a lot of work on that, and like Jimmy Carter made a statement in '77, first president, that kind of went away from American presidents just going with the British government's viewpoint of their internal matter, as it was described. And Jimmy Carter made a very important statement in '77, which basically had the voice of John Hume on it, and that became US policy after that, whether it was Republican or Democrat. And and John Hume was always a great European. Always saw the benefits of trying to get as many people on board, on his mission to not just to bring peace, but to look at the constitutional changes that were needed. That had to be both sides of the community had to be listened to and had to share power essentially.
Yeah. Well, I mean, John was always accused of having a single transferable speech.
Well, he said it himself.
Yeah, no, he used to take the hand out of himself, but it was all about borders and, borders in the mind, really. And we don't.
And the three strands, like he was the one, the three strands of, north, south, east, west, intra-north, so it's a.
But yeah, you look at Europe now and you can go from France to Germany to Spain to wherever,
But UK, you can't. Unless you have an Irish passport, which a lot of people, whether in the north or in Britain, have now. So.
Yes, no, that's okay.
I think the Irish passport now is I think it's the third best passport to have in the world or something.
The third best
in terms of how many countries you can get into
without
needing a visa. I think Germany's number one, I think, but Ireland's but the third best, something like that. It's a good passport to have.
Well.